in building up momentum to Open Access Week. It's great to have you all on board and to present this topic. Hilton Gibson, our Systems Administrator at Stellebosch University, will be co-presenting with me this morning, and he will do technical system admin part. If you cannot hear me, please indicate so in the text box on the right-hand side. Okay, there's no line. So, Hilton, can I just get a heads up that I can continue and that you can hear me? Colette, can you hear me? Oh, great. Okay, great. I got the go-ahead from Hilton. I'm going to close. Yes, everybody can hear well. Okay, let me close. Ilana, I can see that you have 2 instances of the button open. It might cause some echo. Yes, Ilana, the echo because you have 2 instances open of the blue button. You can just close both and try to access again. Okay. Right, I'm going to continue. Open access journal publishing is something that's done more and more by academic or higher education institutions. And in 2011, Stellebosch University started to investigate and implement an open access journal hosting service. Now, just to set the scene, what are academic or scholarly journals? It's peer-reviewed periodicals in which scholarship relating to a particular academic discipline is published. So peer review is a very important process in the academic journal publishing industry. If a journal is not peer-reviewed, it's not recommended. So there should be a statement of peer review somewhere on the journal page. Academic will serve as forums for the introduction and presentation for scrutiny of new research and a critique of existing research. And for that to happen, research has to be open. So therefore, open journals so that research can be scrutinized. Open access journals are journals or scholarly journals that are available online to the reader without financial, legal or technical barriers other than those inseparable from gaining access to the internet itself. Open access journals should also go through a peer review process. It works exactly the same as subscription journals, with the only exception it's open and the reader does not have to pay to read the articles. Now, about the peer review process, it was instituted by Nature in 1967, so 47 years ago. One might just as well assume that before that time, the articles were not peer-reviewed, and even after 1967, not all journal articles have been peer-reviewed, which is a huge problem. Peer review refers to the process of subjecting an author's scholarly work, research or ideas to the scrutiny of others who are experts in the same field before the paper is published in a journal. Once it's been peer-reviewed by peer reviewers, usually 2 other experts, they would come up with a recommendation to accept the paper for publication, to request revisions by the author, or to reject the paper. They can even advise that the paper be submitted elsewhere. When just looking at traditional versus e-journals, it can really be referred to as journals before and after the internet. Traditionally, journals were printed in paper. They had a manual workflow. If somebody submitted an article, it was posted via slow mail or it was emailed. The publication process was slow, and so was the dissemination process. With e-journals, the journal is published in its entirety online. It has an electronic workflow with alerts for the editor, for the reviewers, for the authors. Every time there's a new activity they need to attend to. There's a fast review, which results in fast publication and faster dissemination. And at the same time, it helped that the costs came down. and that resulted in the open access movement because especially libraries felt that there's no longer a need to charge exorbitant costs to subscribe to a journal, while it's supposed to be more affordable. Editors are not paid, reviewers are not paid to do work. So what's a huge expense? And Stellenbosch University, we've learned that it's not that expensive. You need a server, and the software is available as open source, and therefore expenses are minimal. You might pay the layout editor or the proofreader a salary, but that's basically it. So there's different business models, as you might know. Also, the subscription journals and then the open access journals. And with subscription journals, more and more subscription journals have an option available where the author or the funder or the institution can pay a huge sum of money and then make the article openly accessible. It's better than nothing, but still it's not fully open access, and that's not what open access advocates for. Okay, next slide. Important when starting an open access journal service is to keep in mind that you one day might want the journal title to end up on the Department of Higher Education and Training accredited list of journals. Now, those of you who work in libraries know that the Thomson Reuters list and the ISI list and the IBSS list and then the DHET also have their own list of accredited journals. So please keep that in mind. And just some basic facts and figures to set the scene before continuing to OJS. There are so many journal titles. Genomics Journal Seek database contains 102,139 titles. Thomson Reuters Master List contains 16,970 lists. And Scapus List contains 29,385. Then there's also an e-journals database. I could not get a figure from there. The UN directory contains 3,000 titles, and then the directory of open access journals contains 9,979 titles. So there's no just one database that contains all journal titles. You'll have to look at different databases and directories. When starting a journal or when moving from print to online or starting a new online journal, there are certain criteria which you need to adhere to should you one day become, or should the journal one day become a DHET accredited journal. The editor-in-chief should have a high national or international standing and reputation, and so also the members of the editorial board. If it can represent the international community, you can have people from all over the world, the better. It should not be only people from one institution or only people from South Africa. They should be from all over the world. Then, all the questions the DHET also asks when considering journal titles for inclusion is the quality of articles of a high and good general or average quality. How many articles are published per annum, and are they published on time? In other words, no delay in publication of an issue. That will count against the journal. Does the journal contain a good sample of the best work done in the country or in the discipline or field? Is there a focus on local, regional kinds of materials problems? Are there articles included from authors from across the country and also internationally? Or useful additional scholarly features like editorials, topical reviews, book reviews, scholarly correspondence, etc. included? And is proper English language used for the abstracts and for all the articles? All articles should be submitted to a proofreader or language editor before publication. When errata occurs, when somebody picks up that there's a mistake in the article, how is that managed? You should not replace the full article, but just add an errata to the article. Is good citation practice applied? Is this journal suitable as a general ongoing stimulus for local graduate students, young staff, and the discipline concerned? Is there some kind of comparability with leading international journals in the field? And then the DHET will come up with recommendations concerning the journal if it does not adhere to the requirements. Now, as indicated, at Stellenbosch University, we started some journals in 2011, but a month or two ago, what we did was to conduct an audit of journal titles published by Stellenbosch University, and I would like to encourage you to also start here, should you consider hosting a journal hosting service at your institution. First, establish what is being done at your institution. It might be that somebody already publishes journals using OJS, and you don't want to duplicate effort, but you can consider moving to a central service within the library. So first of all, conduct an audit of journal titles, even though you don't plan to host them, or even they don't even have to be open access. Just know what's going on at your institution. I'm sure many people will appreciate it. We listed our journal titles at this address, so you're most welcome to go and have a look. And we also indicated whether it's in table format, whether it's open access or subscription access. And we've indicated what is the affiliation with Stellenbosch University. For example, are members of our university serving on the editorial board? Is it an editor, or what kind of association does the journal have with university? So I would really like to encourage you to also start by doing an audit and establish what journals are published by department and overall at the university. Just some more suggestions how we go about when establishing a journal. We see that each journal has a web page with a proper URL. We use the journals.ac.za URL. It immediately indicates that it's an academic journal. It's not just an org.za or a CM journal. The look and feel should always look professional. If you transfer it from to an online journal, as indicated, the DHET also requires proper English and language, proper referencing, and a valid EISSN assigned by the ISSN International Center. Although the journal might have an ISSN in printed format, since the journal will be migrated to an online format, it will have to be assigned a different ISSN. So in the end, you can indicate both the print ISSN and the EISSN on the web page for that journal. If it's an existing journal, it should have an established history of responsible reporting. It should contain good quality articles detailing well-performed research. Contact details should be included. The names of the editorial team should appear there with their affiliations, the names of the editorial board with their affiliations and their countries, and also if a journal has an advisory board. The scope and focus of a journal should be included. The peer review process should be explained. What happens when somebody submits an article? The journal should clearly indicate how frequently it's published, and then the open access policy for the journal should also be registered with Sherpa Romeo. A digital preservation policy for the journal should be in place. So if you plan to host a journal service, you should have such a policy in place. And in the end, the open access journal title should also be registered with the Director of Open Access. I think this is the last one. The journal should contain a publication ethics and malpractice statement, including plagiarism detection policy. And you can indicate, or you can work with an editor, and if you subscribe to, for example, Turnitin at your institution, they might you might recommend that they submit all articles that they accept before publication to turn it in. You should have a copy editing and layout editing process. Author guidelines should be clearly stated on the web page, and more information about the publishers should also be made available. Okay, sorry, this is another one. If it's an existing printed journal that decides to go online, you can retrospectively digitize the previous issues and articles and also submit it to the journal space on the journal on the server. There should also be a copyright policy. The journal history should be documented, for example, changing editors, and then indexing where you should list the journal and register it with directories to make it more visible. Each journal title should be assigned a DOI prefix. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier. A DOI can be assigned to a thesis, to a dissertation, to a web page, to a database, to anything for citation purposes. But in the journal environment, each journal title is assigned a DOI prefix, and the OJS software then generates a DOI for each article. So when cited, the DOI becomes the persistent URL. Okay, just with regard to small journals, even the smallest journal can become an international journal and has potentially a larger audience than even the most popular paywall journal. So no journal is too small to start with. Once you've identified the journal titles published at your university or your institution, decide which might be a possible candidate or champion to work with strategically and to make a success of your hosting service. Start small. Possible stakeholders you might want to involve. It depends whether you follow a top-bottom approach or bottom-up approach. Advisory research in our case was very supportive. Research office and IT might play a role, the intellectual property office, and then the editors at your institution, the printer. At our university, it's Sun Media. And in some cases, journals decided to go online and open access, but they still wanted to keep the door open should there be people who want a printed copy still. So our Sun Media team were more than willing to accommodate those requests. And then, of course, the library. In our instance, the Open Scholarship Office, Sun Journals was just one part of the services that we offered. Faculty librarians can play a role. We've heard the presentation yesterday about the role of faculty librarians. Advocate this service, this open access journal service, create an awareness, become part of this process. You can even become the journal manager. And catalogers, of course, can always assign metadata. So there's lots of opportunities for libraries to demonstrate their value. A typical role of the library would be to, first of all, they need to understand the research process, promote the open access. Hosting open access journals is part of e-collection building. And through making it available open access, it helps to disseminate and facilitate access to information. So the library can host the journal using OJS. The library can be responsible for software upgrades, provide training and ongoing support. The library will typically acquire an EISSN, and apply for it through the National Library of South Africa. The library can assign metadata for indexing, register with harvesters, search engines, directories, make the journal title as visible as possible, even create an entry on Wikipedia for journal titles, and YouTube videos. There are many different ways in which a journal can be promoted. And of course, the digital object identifier should be applied for. That's the role of the library. And then a journal domain name should be registered. And for example, South African Journal of Industrial Engineering, .journals.ac, etc. That URL, very important. And then the library is also responsible for digital preservation and content archiving. You can set up a Google Analytics account linked to the journal hosted via OJS, and Google Analytics will keep track of usage and downloads, but OJS also has a statistical feature which will be able to demonstrate how many times an article has been downloaded or who has cited an article. Then there's a Creative Commons licensing option. You should have, as part of your journal management, an agreement between the journal and the authors. Will authors be allowed to assign Creative Commons licensing? In other words, will authors be allowed to determine the usage of their articles? Will it remain their own, or will they sign a wide copyrighted journal? And preferably, the copyright should stay with the author, and yeah. Then the journal should have an open access policy. I've indicated already the journal should register the policy with SharePoint Romeo. I recommend that you register a Gmail admin account for the journal, so that should editors change, there's not a huge impact in terms of communication with the users of the journal. The library can assist with application of journal impact factor with Thomson Reuters, and also for listing on SciMago. And the journal can overall plan advisory role on how to become a trusted journal. I'm going to hand over to Hilton here. He's quickly going to brief you on the journal software. Hilton?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, thanks very much. My name is Hilton Gibson, and I do the system administration at Stellebosch University. I'm just going to post to my CV in the chat box on the right hand side. There it comes. There you go, you can have a look at my credentials. Just talk about using OJS is not possible with actually having OJS published as a system at the university. Now, the open access movement is a result of the serials bundles crisis, and OJS is an alternative way to publish your own journal without having to solicit the services of a commercial enterprise. OJS was started by John Levinsky, I think it's Simon Fraser University in Canada. It is now a foundation. It's called the Public Knowledge Project. And I just want to give a quick overview of the mistakes we made so that you don't make the same mistakes. When we first investigated publishing journals, one of the managers asked me what would happen if one of the editors decided to leave the university, Stellebosch University, and go to another university. What would happen with the journal and the publishing system? We decided that each journal would be hosted as a separate entity and would have its own separate ac.za domain name. But that is not the way that OJS as a software solution was designed. OJS was designed as a federated system. In other words, you install OJS once and you host journals with the same installation. So instead of doing an installation per journal, you do one installation, and then what we call the administrator of OJS then creates journals. So we went ahead and installed the systems as independent systems, but we found that keeping them up to date became almost a technical nightmare if you don't have expert programming support. And in fact, just recently, OJS admitted on their mailing list and on their website that updates are a nightmare, and they have now decided to use a different system of doing updates with OJS version 2.4.5. So we are now in the throes of moving from the individually hosted systems with the journal's ACZA domain moving to this domain, I'm just going to type it quickly in the chat bar. So it will still be, the journals will still have, as Ina mentioned, an academic authenticity because they will be published by an academic institution and they will be vetted by an academic institution and they will have an academic institution's domain name. I cannot talk for our institution or our library without a policy, but I am sure that in the future there will be documentation to ensure that this system will be maintained in perpetuity and they will be supported hopefully by everyone. So just in a nutshell, the mistake we made, we didn't use OJS as it was intended as a federated publishing system. We actually found out that when editors do move, they are fairly mercenary about their move, and they take everything with them, and normally not even a thank you. So that is the mistake we made. And my advice is, if you are thinking of launching your own publishing system using OJS, is to stay with the federated model, use a URL that is affiliated with your institution, and use the federated model. OJS has an import and export function if the editor should move, which exports the critical data, the articles and the user data. So there is a way to move between systems. My other piece of advice is, if you also consider publishing the infrastructure yourself, is to get expert programming resources, expert Linux administrator, and if you cannot find an expert Linux administrator, is to look around in your city or region for the local Linux user group. You just type that in. Contact them and find out who is the Linux geeks and who can help you. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so these are the system requirements for using OJS, PHP or later with MySQL or PostgreSQL support, a database server, and Unix-like operating system. And you can download the software free of charge from the OJS PKP website. The workflow within a journal, whether it's a subscription journal or whether it's an open access journal, is similar. Usually an author would write an article. The author will then submit the article to the editor of a journal. The editor will then decide who should be the reviewers, who are the experts, and he will ask the reviewers, are you prepared to review these papers? The reviewers will then accept and they will review it and post comments, which will then go back to the editor. And the editor will then communicate again with the author. And once the author has approved or the editor is happy, the editor will send it to the proofreader and the copy editor and the layout editor. And then the issue will be published once the editor has received all the articles for a certain issue. But nowadays the trend is also to publish articles as they become available. So not even to wait until the issue is complete, but only publish one article at a time. There are many other trends in terms of journals, which I'm not going to address now. I just want to get to the OJS part now. This is an example of South African Journal Industry Engineering. It's a very simple look and feel, and all OJS hosted journals looks more or less the same, but we do not have, we do not waste lots of time in graphic design. Journals are, however, welcome to get a graphic designer and design a very fancy layout, but we do not offer that as part of our service. Okay. This is the landing page, and then when you want to to do anything within OJS and the journal, you have to log in and you have to be assigned certain rights. Now, after the system administrator has installed the software and during the setup process, he has to indicate who will be the super admin for the journals, or the admin for the journals. And usually he would assign the person who's responsible for setting up journal and managing the service. And in our instance, we created a generic login and admin login so that myself and two of my other colleagues, Colette and Ricardo, can also access it as administrators. So you can just click on login there or login there on the right hand side. What's it going to do? There's a login and you click on login, and it will take you to the user home page. That's always the starting page after you have logged in, user home. And in this instance, I've been registered as journal manager, editor, author, and reviewer. If you have only been registered as an author, you will only see author. Or if you only been registered as journal manager, you will only see journal manager. But for example purposes, I've registered myself for all of these roles. And if you have a look there, this is the workflow that currently going on. There's currently no articles, 0 unassigned. In other words, all articles that have been submitted by authors have been assigned by the editor and are currently in review. 75 are being reviewed. 7 are currently in editing. In other words, with a copy editor or with a layout editor or with a proofreader, that they have been accepted. But that 75 is still in review. And I've submitted to articles for searching purposes. That's why it seems as if I have submitted articles, but I have to reject it. And then I assist with submitting retrospective articles or the Scholar user, not me personally, the Scholar user, under which name I've logged in. I've submitted 450 archival articles, and Ricardo was extremely helpful in that regard. And then if I had anything to review, there would have been an indication. But since there's nothing against my name, it means I have not been assigned any articles to review. And at any stage, the person can edit his or her profile, change a password, or log out. If you look at these roles to the left-hand side, there is a journal manager. The journal manager, in our case, is usually the library who assists with the setup. Once the journal is up and running, the journal manager can become the responsibility of the journal themselves. I can appoint a journal manager. But in most of the instances, we are just the journal manager also. The editor is the journal's responsibility. They assign an editor, and the editor can create an issue and send a batch email to notify users if a new issue has been published or if all the guidelines have changed, no matter what it is. He wants to communicate. And then the author can submit a new article from this interface. Okay, just going to go back to show you where our journal manager is the setup. And that is the first thing you need to do once the software has been installed and you have been assigned administrative rights. You have to set up the journal. And if you click on set up, first if you click on journal manager, it will take you to this page. And set up is that little section there, set up. Okay. Just about this screen under journal management, users can register themselves and they can also indicate what role they want to play. Or they can just register for interest's sake and potentially, should they want to become authors in future, they can also register. But the journal manager and also the editor can assign roles in the workflow. So you can register as a user without any role. or you can register as a user and indicate that you want to be an author, or the editor can assign you a certain role once you've enrolled as a user. E-profile registered on OJS before the editor can assign any of these roles to you. With regard to the management pages, this is where the editor or journal manager would send out announcements about the journal, for example, call for papers. This is where you can access the files and where OJS stores all the files. Every action, every version of an article is stored and filed in this file browser system. If the journal consists of sections such as editorial section, book reviews, and articles, then you can divide that issue and indicate what sections should apply. Review forms for your reviewers. Should the editor want to create prepared review forms, it can become an online form which the reviewer can just tick off and then submit to the editor along with the journal article. Languages mostly used is English. The masthead contains information about the editorial board and the editor and the advisory board. Prepared emails. OJS contains about 140 emails pre-prepared. So if you want to request a reviewer to review an article, you don't need to type the request, a long letter. You just click on the request and the pre-populated email will come up, and you just indicate to the person, or you add the email address and send it off. So you don't need to type, and you use the same language and wording for all your emails consistently throughout the OJS system. Reading tools refers to tools to make it easier for the user. It's on the journal interface, quick links to print the article or to email the article or to share it with a wider community. And setup is the one I will go into more detail into. Just want to show you stats and reports. You can at any stage create a report of who have been registered as authors, or what's the download statistics per article. Payments, should you require payment, for example, for page fees, this is where you can set it up. And then there's numerous system plugins. For example, if you want to create additional blank pages within OJS with additional content for which OJS has not made provision for, then you can do so. And this is also where you can activate your DOI, your DOI, Digital Object Identifier, for your journal. Then you can, as Hilton indicated, should you decide, the journal decide to move elsewhere, or for some reason want to export or import the data, it can be done from here. We also use this import-export data tool to submit our metadata for the journals to Crossref, with which we have registered our digital object identifiers, and also to the directory of open access journals. We also export metadata and upload it to directory of open access journals. Okay, so going back to the journal setup, that little part there, very important to address when setting up in a journal. There's 5 steps, very straightforward. The first one, details. That's where you enter the journal title, the ISSN, both the print and the online ISSN. Who will be the principal contact? Usually it's the editor. The technical contact, it can be the journal manager at the library, or it can be the journal manager at the journal or the department, or whoever they have appointed. What is the email signature that must be added to all the pre-prepared emails? Who is the publisher? At Stellebosch, we regard ourselves as the host, but we're not necessarily the publisher. It might be the organization that is the publisher. Who are the sponsoring organizations? Acknowledge them. Who provide support in the form of financial support. where is the journal index, and what is the journal history? How old is the journal? Is it a credible journal? Who were the editors during the past 40 years, etc. All those kind of, when was the journal started, etc. Policies, that's the second step in the setup process, policies. What's the focus and the scope of a journal? And existing journals already have this sorted out. They just need to copy and paste the information to the online OJS. How does the peer review process work? And what's a privacy statement in terms of authors' emails? You won't disclose emails of authors to anybody. So what's the policy of a journal regards to that? Additional info can be added under about, and then journal archiving, for example, using the log system can be entered here. Many of the fields are mandatory, so optional. So if you don't know, always add it later once you've found out. And the third step in the submissions process, during this step you have to complete the following together with the editor, author guidelines, for example, what type of font should be used, what the size of the font should be, what referencing technique should be used, and links can be added to online help pages. Permissions and copyright. In other words, what licensing will apply, will always be allowed to choose a Creative Commons license, and that can be specified in this section. And the fourth step in the setup process is about management. How will the journal be managed? Access and security settings, publication, scheduling, identification of the journal content, and the workflow. In other words, once somebody has submitted an article, will it go to the editor first and then to reviewers, or won't you have reviewers, or won't you have copy editors? You can decide, or the journal can decide, which roles do they want to accommodate. And some of our journals, for example, do not have copy editors. They only have the editor, and from the editor it goes to the editor. I don't use proofreaders, so it's the journal's decision. In the fifth step, this is a journal header. You can add a banner or a designed banner, and you can change your style sheet here. You can indicate how you would like page layout to be, and also add a journal footer. At Stellenbosch, we've just added a footer to indicate that the journal is hosted by Stellenbosch University, and using ASSAF also indicate the date since it has been hosted online. And you can also add additional navigation options to the toolbar at the top of the journal. There are lots of in terms of OJS. There's the OJS tutorial, learning OJS, downloading, installing, upgrading, recommendation practices, and more. Then there's OJS tutorials, for example, reviewers. If they struggle to use OJS, they can go and view a journal or a video on how to review and take the article through the review process. But many researchers are familiar with OJS already, so they can pretty much stop themselves because more and more journals are using these online systems. There's also a demonstration journal available on the OJS website, OJS demo, so you can submit an article and take it through the workflow, etc. And you can also try to upload and make an article available in various file formats, as a video slide, audio only, in other words, an audio journal, like we get audio ebooks, audiobooks, read the article, HTML, PDF, etc. You can have an article available in all 5 formats. Only use PDF at Stellenbosch since we do not have a capacity. And if you want to make it available in an ebook format, you can use the Calibri software. That would be the role of a layout editor to do the conversions, etc. There's lots of help in terms of for editors and in setting up a journal, and this just sharing a couple of links. We've and web pages I've encountered, professional editorial standards, starting an open access journal by AOASG, guides for open access journal publishers, open access journal publishing resource index from Spark, starting an open access journal by Dr. Martin Pali. And when I just want to mention Beale's list, it contains a list of potential, possible, or probable predatory scholarly open access publishers. Now, you don't want to end up on that list, or any of the journals hosted by your institution do not want to end up on this list. And that's why it's important to adhere to good practices in terms of when you start in a journal and start hosting a journal online. And I also want to mention, we do not need more journals. We need existing journals to become better and to move to an online open access environment. So our focus should be on that. You can take a traditional journal and make it open access and online. A new journal can be started. We have a few examples. Or you can decide to keep the journal available in print format, but future issues will only be made online available. And here's some links. Once the journal has been set, the software has been installed, the journal has been set up and migrated to an open access online environment, and everybody has been trained. Once everything is stable, you can apply for inclusion with ISI, IBS, Scopus, and CIHLO South Africa. These are the links to get a journal title registered, and I will share it with you via SlideShare, and I will email these slides to all of you. So thank you very much. Are there any questions from your side? If there are any questions, you're most welcome to type it in the text box on the right-hand side. For me or for Hilton, doesn't matter. Thank you, Hilton. You're welcome, Ingrid. Nikki and Hilton. We hope that you have a better understanding of hosting open access journals, and it's really not difficult. It's just you learn as you go, and that's how we also learned. You're welcome, Nikki, always. We love what we do, and Hilton also is very pro-open, so yes. Thank you for practical. We're glad that you find practical here. It's difficult. I feel like a TV presenter. I don't know what the audience looks like, and it's strange presenting like this, but we have to challenge ourselves and try new things. So, welcome, Ilona. Most welcome. Nikki, thanks. You're also beautiful, so thanks, very informative. You're welcome, everybody, and thank you. Our next webinar will be on open access and public libraries, and hopefully more public libraries will join us. Please work with public libraries in helping them to become more aware of open access. We will announce the date soon. It will be sometime in October. And all the best with your open access activities during Open Access Week. Have a great day, everybody. And I see there's no questions. I hope you're not overwhelmed. I hope you're inspired to start this service at your institution. And if we can assist, if Hilton can assist, please do not hesitate to contact us. Oh, thank you, Ingrid. Yes, this is my last responsibility at Stellenbosch to present this, and it's a highlight to any of this. Thank you so much. Thanks, Nikki. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.